According to reports, plans to move 2,000 migrants to RAF Scampton in Lincolnshire, remember that's the old dam busters base, have now been delayed until October. That news just coming through.
And it comes after the government acknowledged that it has bought enough marquees to house 2,000 migrants on disused military bases. But refugee charities have branded the plan cruel, and Labour's Shadow Home Secretary says it shows the Home Office is flailing around.
Well, let's get more now with our correspondent Mark White, who is down at Manston Airfield in Kent, our Home Security editor. Mark, just to touch this breaking news coming first on another airbase, Scampton in Lincolnshire, of course, that dam busters base. We were thinking that maybe they were going to be moved in August. We're now learning from the Home Office, or at least from the Parish Council, that problems there mean that might not happen until October, which would indicate maybe why they're now looking at these marquees or tents.
Well, certainly there could be a link. I'm not aware that there is a direct link, but clearly there are 2,000 people eventually going into Scampton. The first of those were due to go in August, but then it would be an incremental rise after that over quite a long period of time. But you're right, the Parish Council up there that has been fighting this along with other local authorities in the area around this Lincolnshire air base had a meeting with Home Office officials where they were told that there is a delay, that now instead of the first of these asylum seekers arriving in August, it will be at least October, and it seems that there has been a delay in the surveys that they need to carry out to the 14 buildings within the old air base that they'll be using to house the migrants. There is also, we're told, a delay in or a difficulty in trying to find experienced contractors to carry out the work to reconnect utilities to the buildings concerned. So clearly disappointing news if you're the Home Office again, because once again it limits the options of having accommodation for this expected surge that will be coming across the channel in the coming weeks once we get to the flat calm conditions.
And in terms of the options available there at Manston, of course, you've reported that from there before what was a processing centre. We now understand that there are plans yet again for these temporary structures, these marquees, that could house a substantial number. But I guess, you know, again, the question mark, what facilities will be offered?
Yeah, there are already some marquees that have been erected to help better deal with those being processed when large numbers come through. But they know from the experience of this time last year, when we got to the flat calm months in the Channel, that sometimes more than 1,000 people a day were coming through, and that just led to a complete bottleneck here at Manston, with thousands of people, instead of being processed within the maximum 48 hours and then sent off to other accommodation, they were being held here for weeks at a time, and they were being held here in less than ideal conditions, which was of course of great concern. So the government, the Home Office, wants to get ahead of that this time round and actually erect marquees that are robust, that have all the facilities and the bed space to be able to house up to 2,000 people here for a number of weeks until they can then be pushed on towards the likes of the newly arrived accommodation barge in Portland, Wethersfield, the air base there, which has started to receive the first asylum seekers in recent weeks. But Scampton, as we say, that's not now going to be housing any until at least October, and then when it does, you know, there'll be a few to begin with, and it will gradually build up over time.
You're calling them marquees, Mark. Some people are calling them concentration camps and saying these tents will just demonise people who are seeking asylum.
Yeah, well, that kind of language which is coming from one of the charities, in particular Refugee Action, I don't think is particularly helpful, especially when you look at the situation around the world. These marquees are used regularly by the United Nations High Commission for Refugees and by these charities. Refugee and human rights charities use them as well. And you could argue that, yes, they're dealing with a dire emergency and a crisis, but they're not just used for that. They have been erected for years in Turkey, in Jordan, other countries around there, as long-term accommodation centres for refugees who have left the likes of Syria and other particularly badly affected areas in the likes of the Middle East. So, you know, they have been used, and that's what the Home Office point to, and they have been used very successfully, and they offer a level of accommodation that is perfectly comfortable in that sense. You know, they are watertight tents that are being used with all the backup facilities, and the Home Office say that there will be all of the backup amenities and facilities here, such as 24-hour medical care and the like around this area, as well as recreational facilities for those that are held here. And I should say it's not going to be for the very long term that anybody would be housed in these marquees here. It would be for a number of weeks.